Ladies and gentlemen, great to have you back on a very special week here in Jacksonville land. Duval Devout, congregation, so to speak. Here, welcome to this week's edition of the Duval Dive. I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game, and let me bring in my personal champion, the man who is probably very glad this week's events happened, Travis Holmes, BigCatCountry.com. What's going on, my man?
Man, I'm doing well. How you doing, brother?
Oh, I figured you're doing well because, listen, I say what you will about the weather in Florida, but the forecast of rain in the Duval area surrounding one Josh Allen has got to be something that has you smiling in a high degree. I know that the fans everywhere that follow the Jaguars closely were starting to pucker with a bit of the lemon booty, as we call it here on this show, worried that they may not get this deal done. And now that it is in a rather favorable deal, we'll get into that in a minute, of course, in my opinion at least. But now that all of that is the case, I've seen optimism flip on a dime amongst, people on the socials, in the cesspool that is Twitter. No, I'm not calling it X because, I don't want to tell people I'm on X and then people think I'm under the, whatever, you get it. The punchline's this, a lot of positivity within the Duval Devout there on the socials and in reaction and all like that. And listen, all of the response that Josh Allen himself has had to it, saying he felt like he was going to cry. He was very excited about the deal. He's ready to do things. This is why this franchise was smart to tie it themselves. Listen, we said the same thing about Foye a few weeks back, Travis. This is why this franchise is right to tie themselves to Josh Allen this way. You got to agree, yeah?
I mean, of course, I think all of Duval, or outside of those 1 and 2 ridiculously fanatic, just crazy fans that you're always going to have, we're in agreement. Josh Allen, Josh, they are out there, unfortunately. But no, Josh Allen was absolutely deserving of the contract that he got. He's deserving to be in Jacksonville for another 5 years. Hell, he's deserving to be in Jacksonville for the rest of his life, if you ask me. So I'm happy the man got signed. I'm happy he got the bag. I'm happy he got that generational wealth. And I hope he rises to that occasion and continues to build that legacy that he's talking about afterwards.
Yeah, well, and his new goals, he's already setting it high, saying his next thing that he wants to accomplish is Defensive Player of the Year, and, of course, to get a ring. All players want to get a ring for sure. The Defensive Player of the Year piece is going to be challenging, I feel like, for the same reason that Jimmy Smith still isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. There's a bit of a difficulty trying to get to that high level of a praise and acclaim here when you are associated with the Duval Devout here, unfortunately, at the moment. But who knows? Josh Allen might be the guy that could fix that, and I think that's a very interesting prospect.
But the man said he's also 10 sacked. I mean, this is what he stated in his post-game interview. I have a write-up on Big Cat Country. Absolutely take a quick look. It's 5 takeaways from the Josh Allen presser. Everything you need to know. It's all right there for you. I'm spoon feeding it to you, baby. Come on, just go and take it. No, Josh Allen's sister. Shout out to her, Maisha Hines Allen. He's basically her example. Josh Allen's push. He's that familiar push within the family that makes him want to get that Super Bowl because his sister has a professional championship. She played for the WNBA back in 2019 and won her championship. So Josh Allen right now is playing catch up, and I love that. Come on, you know how I feel about those familiar arguments when we talked about Press Taylor and his brother in Cincinnati.
Listen, we aren't even related, and I know how you and I get into spades, okay? So, I would imagine, I can only imagine how the two of them are getting. See, Travis, if you saw the video, Travis like, oh, no.
Let's go.
Legit. I'm glad you had that piece in. Check out the piece on BigCatCountry.com, by the way, Bing. My voice is better. Why am I holding back? Bing! There we go. Oh, no, it's still not there. 95%, folks. Kind of like, by the way, Josh Allen is playing most of the season last year hurt. Mm-hmm. We would come to find out. Now, granted, I didn't draw attention to it, but there were times after games I did notice his shoulder was wrapped, and there was a lot. Listen, this is what you go through when you're trying to get that bag. And let's open up the bag in question. Travis, how do you feel about the deal in and of itself? Now, I know, granted, there's a lot of people out there in the socials who are these, these lab rats, these statistics geniuses, air quotes, that think, oh, well, we had this deal worked out months ago that it was supposed to be this way. Right. But the human element taking place of this deal being what it is, to where the guaranteed money was as manageable as it could get for a deal like this. By the way, side note, thanks to John Shipley, I was informed that this is the first $100 million Jacksonville Jaguar contracting value. Listen, I know a lot of it is because of the advancement of the salary cap and such that it is, but let's give credit to Trent Baalke in the front office for having the cojones to break open the wallet for a guy that Trent Baalke himself said wasn't that guy. What was it? Just 2 years ago, last year, right, Travis? So
yeah, we were talking just last all season, but he wasn't 100% sure. So I mean, reportedly. So the fact that they got this deal done, it does say something. And to those lab rats that you previously mentioned, again, I have an accounting degree. Like I do taxes, you know, in the off season just because I can. I've been doing it since I was 11. So I'm one of those guys.
And who wants to pay for TurboTax anyway?
But even in saying that, there are some things within that contract that they're absolutely different. For someone of Josh Allen's caliber, if you're talking the top 4, top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, some of those, you know, those incentives, they're not something that you would generally see in a contract like that. So it would sound like, and I've had this conversation with a few people, it sounds like that's one of the main things that helped this deal up, because in overall guaranteed money, in overall salary structure, the contract seems to be very similar to Brian Burns' deal. And we talked about that when Brian Burns' deal happened, that was going to throw a monkey wrench in Josh Allen's negotiations.
Right, yeah, with the guaranteed money that Burns got, which he probably didn't deserve, but certainly was a sticking point, one of many apparently that existed in the contract negotiation. And you mentioned the incentive structure. What's something that jumped off the page to you that was rare in this instance?
Well, it was the fact that his bonus structure is tied to having a certain amount of sacks. I believe it was 12 sacks, 15 sacks, and 17 and a half sacks. I believe 17 and a half gets him another $750,000. If he makes it to either being voted as an all pro or makes it to a Pro Bowl, he gets $1 million. That'd be crazy. $1 million bonus, and that's for each year of the contract. Also,
now I'm gonna back Jaguars. No,
and that makes overall over the scope of the contract, those incentives basically wrap up to be about just under $9 million of the contract. So that's the difference between it being $141.5 million contract and the $150 million contract that we were saying that's the ceiling for the contract. That was what was initially reported, which shout out. People who put these initial contract numbers out, man, can we stop doing that? Because the numbers are never accurate when we get the later numbers. The actual numbers were 141 million, 5-year contract with the option to potentially make up to that remaining $8.5-9 million on sacks and Pro Bowls and such.
Well, in the words of Matt Mercer, you could certainly try. You could certainly try to tell people to stop reporting total value. I don't think it's going to happen. And to your point, the guaranteed money for what he's getting as a player that's just under $30 million a year now and just under 90 guaranteed. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, again, I set this back before the new league year started when the Brian Burns contract happened. I'm like, hey man, this is what those agents are going to do. They're going to add $500,000 to the contract, and maybe add $500,000 or $1 million more to the guarantee structure, and voila, we have the contract. And for the most part, that is exactly what happened. And again, I always hold myself accountable. The tweets are out there. I just retweeted it, last week. Travis D. Holmes on Twitter. Go take a look. Like it's there. Like this, we obviously knew what this was going to be. However, there were those negotiations within. Hey, when does this last $11 million of the bonus kick in? Again, Brian Burns, it kicks in 2025. For Josh Allen, it actually kicks in 2026. That is something very serious to negotiate. That's $11 million.
Right. Again, to touch again, the reason why those sticking points were there on the Jaguars side of it clearly are related to the following players: Trevor Lawrence, Andre Sisco, Tyson Campbell, and Travis Etienne. By the way, I would assume if Anton Harrison continues to perform like this for the next 2 or 3 years himself, he too will have a second huge contract that looks similar to Cam Robinson's now. And rightly so, frankly. I feel like Anton Harrison has the opportunity to become a better tackle than Cam Robinson. That's not me saying Cam Robinson is bad. I have the same issue with Cam Robinson that I did with Jimmy Garoppolo as a 49er fan. Listen, you're talented enough, at least at the moment. When he left San Francisco, different question. But you're talented enough at the moment, but you can't stay on the dang field. and that's a problem. And Anton Anderson is there. He's young. He's not getting hurt like Cam is, and there you go.
No, that's facts. I mean, availability is the biggest ability. Yes, it's the best ability that you can have in NFL. Frank Gore made a career just off that, and I'm not going to say the man was, but him staying injury-free is what allowed that man to be a Hall of Fame player. Like, that's
performing high. We can mention that too. Yeah, I mean,
performing high. He may not have ever been the best and most explosive guy, but it didn't matter because he was consistently good and he was always available, and that's the biggest piece.
Because Frank the Tank was a thing, and his last name being Gore, it just added to the fact that he was an inconvenient truth. Okay,
and that man is a Duval legend. Yeah, that's how we got Trevor Lawrence.
You know. Anyway, that's interesting that you make that connection. I didn't go right there, but you're not wrong. Hey, listen, I mean, you need to feel glad the Dolphins never listened to my logic. I thought they should have kicked the can down the road one more year and got clever for Trevor instead of tanking for Tua, but I digress. To that we salute you. Anyways, can you imagine Trevor Lawrence with Waddle and Tyreek?
Let's not talk about stuff like that. That's not okay. That's not good for my heart, man. I just had a doctor's appointment yesterday, man.
I'm just saying it would have been 80 points over the Broncos. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, no, well, and so let me add this too. With Josh Allen in place, you and I have been talking a lot about, what if players of a certain caliber fall to 17. I'm going to make this statement so you don't have to put yourself out on a limb like you did in Twitter. I'm going to show some solidarity. Okay. I've lost count. I lost count at 4 or 5. Have had 4 or 5 mock drafts, I feel like, where Jared Verse falls to 17. Bro, listen, I don't necessarily condone recreational drug use, but whatever you have, please share. That being said, if Jared Verse falls to 17, even now, Travis Holmes, I still feel like you pluck him at that spot with the best player available mantra. What say you to that?
That's been something that's kept me up on a few nights, and that's legit.
Apparently, yes.
Well, it's kept me up, doing these mock drafts, having these conversations with all the people that I talk to, and I'm probably going to do it. I might not love it because I'm going to be conflicted because there's still the option of taking Byron Murphy. You got the option of going with one of the corners, because again, the Jaguars do need a corner, but this draft is also really deep in corners who can play press man coverage. Right. I'm that type of guy who says overwhelm the offensive front, get that dominant defensive line, and give your defensive secondary time to just meld, time to merge, time to learn, time to grow, just like the Kansas City Chiefs recently did with their whole defense. They built that secondary in the draft. San Francisco has historically done the same thing. The Ravens have done, there's a boatload of teams. They'll use free agency to patch and build up that line the best they can. And once they do, they get those later round, corners, safeties, and that dominant front allows that secondary some give, and having those holes, because the offense just don't have time, man.
I wrote about that actually. I know that the corners for the Chiefs this year were a lot of starting guys, and there was a lot of talk that they had the best corner core in the NFL, at least in the postseason. But I would even add, going to the previous year, beating the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I actually did a piece on the 3-point conversion, about a 5th round and 7th round pick that not only saw starting time in the postseason, Travis, leading up to the Super Bowl, but also got turnovers in postseason games. If you could get guys at number 5 and number 7 that can contribute like that, it leaves you the opportunity to build the front to set up that kind of success for anybody in the secondary. I don't give a damn where you're drafted, right? That's the right. I always mess up the Karlaftis, I think's his name. I always
George Karlaftis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And then alongside Karlaftis with Chris Jones, I could stop right there, but they have other guys up front who could perform very well and make them a dangerous pass rush. That's why Chris Jones got the first big deal amongst D linemen. That isn't talked about enough, in my opinion, that I would argue set the table for everything, be it Burns and also eventually to Josh Allen himself. So
no, that's facts. But again, I'm of the opinion they don't have to touch that line for 3 to 4 years at that point. Like realistically, at least the 2 to 3 time frame. And that buys you enough time to figure out whatever you're going to do with the secondary as far as piecing that together within this draft. If you get the right guys in the draft, you get 1 to 2 cornerbacks. Like I'm of the opinion you can get one of those mid to late round nickel cornerbacks, second, third round.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up someone like Jerry Jones, goodness gracious, or another mid round cornerback. I guess it doesn't even matter. But because there's so many guys within this draft. I'm like, if you can just load up in that way, again, like the Chiefs did. Now all of a sudden you don't have to touch that secondary for a while. You might even have the replacements on the staff because let's be honest, we had a major competition in camp just last year with this same secondary. We have a few, we still have a few guys like Christian Braswell who can play ball, who can in a different defense and aggressive press man defense. We might have a few guys who we can develop into future starters to maybe even take these roles once we lose guys in free agency. I'm a fan of all of this if they want to proceed in that route, but that all starts with getting someone dominant to just complete the line and you don't have to touch it for a few years.
And I think honestly you need that number 17 pick to do that and get in that position, because then you can truly move Trayvon Walker around, which was the entire reason he was drafted for in the first place. And that's what's beautiful about it. At this point, again, taking nothing away from Adrian Hutchinson in Detroit. He's a big part of their success, and he was hired to do one damn thing, and that was get sacks. Walker was not brought in for that. And by the way, in a division where the offenses are evolving away from a ground and pound style of life to, being kind of an air raid based division, if they have that many good receivers as teams do, and listen, the Texans and Titans both have pretty good receiver cores, taking nothing from the Colts group, but those two are the pinnacle, I think, of in the division of total receiver cores and pass threats out of the backfield included. The best thing to do at that point is to attack the passer, which is why I'm also convinced the Titans have no shot. The man's name's Messiah will get crushed. I'm very confident about that.
Agreed.
I'm getting a lot of help from either Mag Patton or Cortland Griffin in the season previews coming up on the Student of the Game podcast. Bing! To tell me otherwise. But then moreover, it's going to be hard to do, but the best way to disrupt what's going on with Houston is to disrupt CJ Stroud.
Damn, agreed. And that's fast. And again, it also stopping the running game is beneficial, but the running game seems to be an ancillary piece, at least with the Texans. We'll see how that goes with their new running back, but
that's nevertheless, Jonathan Taylor dangerous now in Indy. Yeah, that's a great point there too, right? And the Titans running game, I'm not going to say it's awful, but it's certainly less than what it was with Derrick Henry, and clearly Jonathan Taylor is obviously the best running back in the division. If he could stay healthy. If he can't, it's very interesting to see that Travis Etienne might be jockeying for that spot in a way that he hadn't in the previous 2 seasons.
But I'm so curious to see what that's going to look like, though. And not to take any attention away from Josh Allen and his monstrous contract and that well-deserved contract.
I mean, it was the opening 15 minutes of the show, Travis. What do you want?
Also facts. But no, Travis Etienne behind Morris is going to be interesting because that was one of the few bright spots for Buffalo, is actually running directly behind Morris. They average more yards per carry than anywhere else on their offensive line. So if he's going to be that good in the run game to stabilize that piece, Travis Etienne, that dude might go for 1,500, like on the ground. Like I legitimately believe that.
It's fascinating you bring that up too, because you mentioned Morse doing what he did for the running game, which, as we get constantly reminded, is mostly quarterback Josh Allen in Buffalo, right? Now, imagine, even with Fortner at center and a number of injuries and things getting shuffled and all that, Trevor Lawrence, even with a bad knee, a bad ankle, what have you, was good for a first down run every single game. And I don't think I'm exaggerating, Travis.
I don't disagree, and you're not exaggerating. But the problem with that is I don't want Trevor Lawrence to be known as a quarterback who can run for a first down every single game.
That's the beauty of it. He won't be, but that's always going to be in your pocket. And the moment you create that threat in game and you give a defensive coordinator a mid-game lemon booty, That's your basic MLLB. Now suddenly you could create all sorts of illusion and discombobulation to get NTN to be even further effective. Right. I'm with you. It's whetting the proverbial appetite.
But all this, we talked about this all off season, man. It's all about being more physical. And when Trent Baalke initially said it after the season, I didn't believe him, because this line season for all GMs. I mean, this is what after the season, after that they kick off, that the whistle blows at the last game. Everything I hear at that point is 50% lies. Like I don't know what to believe. That's just straight line season. So he says we need to get more physical, and then most of the things that they did after that for that first month made me believe that I didn't think I could believe them. It just seemed like the same old from last season. Now looking at the overall plan, now looking at everything they've done up front on the defensive line, getting Armstead, getting Josh Allen locked in for the long term, and the potential to possibly make this like a top elite defensive front. Oh no, I'm a fan, bro. Like I'm there with it. I still have questions on that offensive line for sure. As far as what that's going to look like in the run game. Are they going to truly move people? Are they going to change the scheme? What is that going to look like? Because they never got rid of the offensive line coach. And They did state that they had issues with the scheme. So I do have questions on that piece. But as far as the defense is concerned, hey, man, with this defensive front, even just last season, this is probably already a playoff team. It's just we gotta solve the defensive secondary, or however we're going to resolve that in the draft, and we have to figure out what that offensive line and that scheme is going to look like. But I'm excited, to say the least. I gotta say that. So Trent Baalke, fingers crossed, man. Don't screw this up.
Yeah, well, and I think the "don't screw this up" part extends to the draft. A couple amendments I will make to some of the things we said. Like we had said that the D line has an opportunity to not be touched for 1 or 2 years and still be good. The one caveat I would add is I would like to see an exit plan from Eric Armstead, because he's already long in the tooth, 10 years into the league and all that, and experiencing, taking nothing away from Gotsis and company and what they're doing in the rotation. But they need to have that next young bit of beef at defensive tackle to help that rotation too. And it's a 2025 thing. Like, let's say, for example, I'm not wishing this on the Jags, but let's say they find themselves in that mid-range of the draft. If the best player available that falls to them there is a D tackle, you make that pick in 25. That's what I'm saying. So
you say 25. I'm saying you make that pick this year in the third round if you can get somebody like Carter.
Well, I say it that way because I don't think that player exists in this draft, Travis. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, really?
I don't know that he does. Again, let me reiterate, horrible scout. I don't know these things, but Jalen Carter-esque guy from last year's draft does not exist in this year's draft that I've heard about. And it's not like I'm grinding tape like, a lot of my draftniks that I know, the Dalton Tinklenbergs, the Cortland Griffins, of course, there's others out there that you and I both watch. I'm just throwing out two guys that I know that I'm, want to throw a shine on them, of course, with the version in Scouting Depot. But
so I was just thinking because as far as like I've seen Dwayne Carter being mocked to the draft a lot, like being mocked to the Jags a lot, and I'm not saying he's going to be that guy to play that exact same role, but if you can get him in this defense with the fact that they are so multiple. With the fact that we're looking at a 4-2-5 on occasion, we might be looking at a 3-3 on. You give Ryan Nielsen all those pieces, I think you have at least an option for an exit plan with Armstead. But again, that's a 2-year to 3-year process down the line. But already, and that's in this draft. That's a third round, potential third round option just in this particular draft. And that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right, and we got a couple comments here too. Yeah, I think Robert nails the essence of what we're saying here. Baalke just screws up the draft without finger guns telling him who the good players are. Yeah, exactly. And listen, the difference is I, as a podcast host, have that same problem, and I'm admitting it. Dad's Trent Baalke surrounding themselves with the right guys to help him. And then Ramon James steps in on the comments here. Gabe Hall could be molded into that project pick around 153. But see, that's my point. If he's a project pick, that's what I'm getting at is I'm saying the reason why the best available to fall to a 17 pick in this draft isn't a D tackle based on what we've seen and heard from scouting reports and things like that. That's why I make the 25 comment. But yeah, sure. If you got what number do you have there? 153 remote? Yeah. If there's a project pick at 5 where you could start tooling up a guy learning behind Armstead, Gotsis and company, bruh, of course I'm all for it. Let's not get silly.
Right.
And even if coach with Coach Nielsen being the DC now, you need pressure more than ever before, because what's the one thing that simplifies man pressure, Mr. Cornerback? Not having to cover for 3 to 5 seconds.
Agreed. Lord Jesus, agreed. Yes. No, this front is going to be significantly better in my objective opinion, not as someone who supports the Jaguars, but just a fan of the sport. I believe this front is going to be something significantly better than what he had in Atlanta. And if that is absolutely true, then it's going to be so much easier on this secondary. We already have Tyson Campbell. We got Bates at home. We got Cisco. Like, we're good right there. So if we can grab that one additional corner who just gives you 2 to 3 seconds per snap, and I think we're going to be cooking, man.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, that's a lot of good comments today. Let's go to Robert again here too, because he said something I know that will find you zen. We drafted for depth last year when we needed starters. Bro, we wholeheartedly agree with you. We said as much in the early and pilot editions of this podcast, and that's obviously a fantastic take. Let's see, we got
he's spitting right now. Agreed. And so I'm happy to see that they're talking about being much more aggressive, talking about competition, talking about bringing guys in and making guys sweat, because that's going to raise the whole boat. That's going to raise the floor for this entire defense, for the entire team across the board, if that continues to be true throughout the draft. So we're going to see how that goes, though.
Yeah, and just to kind of whet the appetite for this week, somebody agrees with you here. The Teal Corner Pod has a comment that Byron Murphy should also be in thought at 17. Yeah, we said as much. We agree with you there.
So dominant in the gap scheme.
Both. So yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't argue with that. We mentioned Jared Verse simply because for some reason when Travis, I think I mentioned it by accident, just talking smack, thinking this will never happen. Travis will surely yell at me, and he's like, "Oh no, facts, let's do it." I'm like, "What?"
No, man.
Coming up on his mock drafts, and I'm like, what do we do?
Because people disagree with what he is across the board. So like you have some people who are talking about he may be the third best, the third best edge in his draft, and I'm sitting there like, no, long term, not by long term. I simply mean like over the next 2 years. I think he's the best one of this group, and that's the part that's things. It just depends on what you need and what else you have on your roster. But overall, he's got the tools, he's got the traits, and that man's got the film, man.
So I'll say this, man. Got good comments coming in. Here's a good question posed. We'll end it on this to whet the appetite for next week, because normally I'd have cut it there, but Ramon with a good question. How do you both feel about D. Hamilton and his health? Feel that Hamilton really enhances the defense? I'll take that one first, and because I know you're going to go in more depth than me. DeVar Hamilton doing his thing with his health. His health is obvious thing. Availability is the best ability. We said all that. That's half the reason, by the way, if you can get a guy for the defensive middle, please do. That obviously augments that problem, right? And let's listen. We're for the Duval Dive out there, right? Fred Taylor's career was extended by way of depth and committee, right? That's how Mojo got big, was being a second running back in there too. So, shouts to Maurice Jones-Drew, of course, but I think Hamilton is a good player to put in the rotation. I don't think he's a long-term answer. I think he's going to be a career rotational guy because of his health issues. What say you, Travis?
I would be I'd be out in the wind right now making a medical determination on someone's recovery, because that's basically what we're talking about. If we're talking about this exact conversation last offseason, I'm like, I'm all in on Hamilton, being the guy moving forward. He's such a dominant interior defender, and I'm like, this is everything. And now I have zero idea, and that's because it's an abscess on your spine. Like, you don't expect guys to come back from that, period. Just full stop. You don't expect guys to come back from it. So the fact that he did come back and he tried to come back and push through it last season, his strength wasn't fully where it needed to be, and he's had now an off season to maybe get some of that back. That's a coin for me personally. That is a coin flip, because I don't know how to gauge that. And if someone tells you that they do know how to gauge that, they're a liar. Like, and that's just facts. So could he be? Yes. But if you're the team that's talking about competition and that's talking about the fact that this needs to be the season where the boat rises for everyone, I don't know if you can just rest all your faith on that. So if you want to bring in the guy who just, another guy to compete, and we can figure out where that's going to land, and you just have that rotation, awesome. If you want to put everything on that, that's a hard one, man.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, I'll put it this way, I'll do it in dad joke terms. Hamilton did have the promise to be a really solid player, but thanks to injuries, it looks like he's going to miss his shot. Anyways, I know you finally got to see the musical, so you get that joke, Travis. Come on, don't shake your head. That was gold.
Yeah, that was nice.
Robert, I see you have a comment in there about draft picks and stuff. Please bring that in next Friday, because we will definitely be doing some heavy draft talk. So I'm not saying I don't want to read your point. I'm not saying you're not making a good point. I say I want you to bring that next week, because it's going to be something we will chop up and give it its proper value here. Travis, tell the world where you can be found.
Well, you can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, Twitter, Facebook, etc. You can find my writings covering the Jaguars on BigCatCountry.com. You can find me on, in South Florida Tribune's Inside the Pigskin and Sports Exchange and Pundits, all those shows that they have under that banner.
Yada.
Yada, Monday through Friday, just wherever you catch your podcast, man. But yeah, follow me whenever it's online. Yeah, you can definitely just hop on in, chop it up, just like we're doing today, man. We appreciate you guys joining us. And Mr. Nash, tell them where you can be found, sir.
Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Threads, and Instagram at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Special thanks to Kesso, Ramon, Robert, and the Teal Corner Pod for your comments today. Also, special thanks to Travis Holmes, continuing to bring the heat and proving the world once again why he's my personal champion, representing the BigCatCountry.com. Of course, find my writings, 3-point conversion, Jaguar Report, and the Black and Gold Banneret. Hey, tonight I'll actually be at FBC Mortgage Stadium, Travis, for the UCF spring game. So look for that and stuff coming out of that on the blackandgoldbanneret.com and the Night Shift podcast in the coming year too as well.
And a special shout out to the Den Media Group, obviously, for having us on that YouTube channel, man. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, shouts to the Sports Den, adding themselves to the lineup of places we could be found on YouTube, as well as Sertoba Media and the Huddle Up podcast. So thanks for that expansion. Much love to the Sports Den for providing that. And of course, you could find us on the Facebook pages for the Student of the Game and A7BN Sports, as well as the SOTG Twitter feed and Twitch. I'm a 40-year-old who has a Twitch account. It feels weird. Of course, you can also check out my work covering the Orlando Magic with A7BN Sports. I'll be in the building Sunday for the final Magic home game, as well as they'll be hosting the Bucks. That should be a very interesting matchup to wrap the season and see the Magic in, get this, the playoffs. I know. It's crazy stuff. But with all that in mind, an honor, joy, and privilege. Thanks again for everybody who jumped in the comments and did the thing. But until next time, everyone, class dismissed.